My throat was closing. Every breath like sucking air through a pinhole. The fluorescent hospital lights blurred above me as I fumbled desperately through my bag. Panic rising, fingers touching nothing but loose change and old receipts. This couldn't be happening. Not now. I looked up, vision already darkening at the edges, to see my boyfriend Marcus standing there. His expensive cologne hit me before his words did. "Looking for this?" That's when I saw it. My asthma pump, crushed under his designer shoe. The look in his eyes wasn't concern. It was amusement, cold, calculating, like he was watching an experiment reach its inevitable conclusion. "Oops," he said, his arm sliding around Vanessa's waist. "My best friend since college, my maid of honor. Guess you should be more careful where you leave your things." They laughed together as my vision blurred, black spots dancing like ash in a windstorm. I collapsed to my knees, the hospital corridor spinning around me. "Marcus, maybe we should," Vanessa started, a flicker of concern finally crossing her perfect features. "She's fine," he cut her off. "Sarah always was dramatic." Dramatic, as if my airways closing was some theatrical performance I'd orchestrated to inconvenience them, as if I'd planned to catch them sneaking out of the on-call room together when I was supposed to be bringing Marcus lunch during his hospital shift. I tried to speak, to scream, to beg, but no sound came out. Just the desperate, raw wheeze of someone drowning in open air. The last thing I remember is a nurse rounding the corner, her eyes widening in horror as she took in the scene. Me, collapsing, Marcus, the respected doctor, suddenly switching to emergency mode, Vanessa backing away, guilt written across her face. Then, darkness. Everyone says dying feels peaceful, like floating. They're wrong. It feels like being torn apart, like every cell in your body is screaming in agony as it fights against the inevitable. I felt my heart stutter, skip, stop. The doctors later told me I was clinically dead for 6 minutes, but they didn't know the half of it. I wasn't just dead, I was somewhere else, somewhere beyond, and in that place, that impossible space between heartbeats, I saw everything, past, present, and most terrifying of all, future. I saw Marcus and Vanessa at my funeral, their performative grief fooling everyone. I saw them move in together 3 months later, using my life insurance money for a down payment on a condo. I saw them marry on what would have been my 30th birthday. But most importantly, I saw myself coming back, changed, knowing. When I gasped back to life on that hospital bed, the doctors called it a miracle. A near-death experience, they said. But I knew better. Something had happened in those 6 minutes. Something impossible. "She's back with us," a voice said, distant, echoey. Heart rate stabilizing, blood pressure coming up. The first face I saw was Dr. Patel, her dark eyes wide with surprise and relief. The second was Marcus, perfectly positioned at my bedside, holding my hand like the devoted boyfriend everyone believed him to be. "You scared us, babe," he whispered, squeezing my fingers too tightly. "Warning me. But I got you here just in time." Behind him stood my parents, tear-streaked and grateful. "Marcus saved you," my mother kept repeating like a prayer. "He carried you to the emergency room himself." The perfect boyfriend narrative was already being written. The heroic young doctor who saved his girlfriend's life during a severe asthma attack. No one questioned why my inhaler was missing. No one asked why he'd been with Vanessa when it happened. No one except me. "Where's my inhaler?" I asked, my voice a raw whisper. A shadow crossed Marcus's face, so quick anyone else would have missed it. "You must have dropped it when you collapsed. Don't worry, I'll get you a new prescription." First lie of my new life. There would be many more. For 3 days, I lay in that hospital bed, regaining my strength, processing what had happened, what I'd seen in those 6 lost minutes. Visitors came and went, flowers piled up, Marcus barely left my side, the picture of devotion. Vanessa sent a text. So glad you're okay. Need space to process everything. Talk soon. She didn't know I'd seen them. At least, that's what they thought. On the 4th day, when I was finally discharged, Marcus insisted I move in with him, just until you're stronger. His apartment was immaculate, minimalist, cold, like him. But I agreed. Whatever you think is best, I said, my new mantra. Agreeable, docile, unsuspecting. That night, while he slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling, mapping out everything I'd seen in my vision. Every betrayal, every lie. The affair that had been going on for months. The plan they'd made to break up with me gently after the hospital fundraiser next month. The way he deliberately crushed my inhaler after I caught them, gambling that by the time help arrived, I'd be too oxygen deprived to remember what I'd seen. He almost won that bet, but fate, or whatever had pulled me back from the other side, had other plans. In the darkness, I turned to watch Marcus sleep. So peaceful, so untroubled. He had no idea what was coming, no idea that the woman beside him wasn't the same naive Sarah who'd believed his lies, who'd trusted him with her heart, her future, her life. This Sarah remembered dying. This Sarah had seen the future, and this Sarah was going to change it. The company retreat was 6 weeks away. In my vision, I had watched it unfold, Marcus choking on a piece of steak, his face turning purple, his eyes locking with mine across the table as he realised I was the only one there who knew the Heimlich manoeuvre. The universe has a twisted sense of humour sometimes. I spent those 6 weeks playing the perfect girlfriend, recovering, grateful, unsuspecting. I went back to work at the publishing house, smiled at the right moments, laughed at all his jokes. All while I watched and waited. You seem different since the hospital, Marcus said one night, studying me over dinner. I took a sip of wine, meeting his gaze steadily. Near-death experiences change people. Change how? A hint of suspicion in his voice. I smiled. They make you realise what matters. Who matters? He relaxed, ego-soothed. I was so scared of losing you. I know exactly how that feels, I replied, thinking of the inhaler beneath his shoe, the dark spots in my vision, the sound of his laughter as I fought for air. 2 days later, I accidentally saw a text from Vanessa on his phone. Miss you. Can't wait for next week when she's at that conference. I pretended not to see it. Pretended my heart wasn't being shredded all over again. Instead, I kissed him goodbye and went to meet my new ally, the only person I'd trusted with the truth. Dr. Patel was waiting at the cafe, skeptical but curious. You really expect me to believe you died and came back with knowledge of the future? I expect you to believe the medical evidence, I said, sliding a folder across the table. My chart, the anomalies in my brain scan after resuscitation, the unexplained spike in electrical activity. She opened the file, frowning. How did you get these? Does it matter? What matters is, I'm right, and I need your help. For 2 hours, I laid out everything I'd seen in my vision. The affair, the deliberate destruction of my inhaler, and most importantly, what would happen at the company retreat. So you're just going to let him choke? Dr. Patel asked, horrified. No, I said, stirring my cold coffee. Someone will save him, eventually, but not before he understands exactly what he did to me. She shook her head. That's dangerous, Sarah. Vindictive. Call it what you want. I call it justice. I leaned forward. He watched me suffocate Priya. He and Vanessa stood there while I begged for help. They waited until the last possible moment to call for help. Just long enough to claim they tried. Not long enough to be blamed if I died. Dr. Patel was silent for a long moment. What do you need from me? Medical evidence, proof that my inhaler was crushed, not dropped. security footage from the hospital corridor, and your testimony about what you saw when you rounded that corner? She looked troubled. And then what? I smiled. Then I attend a company retreat, and the future changes. The night before the retreat, I lay awake beside Marcus, listening to his steady breathing. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, the scales would balance. I touched my throat, remembering the feeling of it closing. The terror, the betrayal, the darkness. Sweet dreams, I whispered to his sleeping form, while you still can. The morning of the company retreat dawned bright and clear. Perfect blue skies, not a cloud in sight. Weather that mocked my stormy thoughts. I watched Marcus pack his expensive toiletries, whistling some upbeat song I didn't recognise. His phone buzzed, another text from Vanessa, no doubt. He smiled as he read it, typing back quickly before turning to me. All set, babe. The bus leaves in an hour. I nodded, zipping my own bag closed. Ready as I'll ever be. He didn't catch the double meaning. He never did. Marcus only ever saw what he wanted to see. A compliant girlfriend, a successful career, a perfect life. The messier truths remained invisible to him. Inconvenient. Dismissible. Like me, gasping for air on a hospital floor. The luxury coach was already half full when we arrived. My colleagues from Palmer Publishing greeted us warmly. Marcus was popular with my co-workers. Charming, handsome Dr. Marcus Weber, who saved lives and loved baseball, and always knew which wine to order. The perfect boyfriend. If only they knew. Sarah, over here! My assistant editor Zoe waved from the back of the bus. I settled in beside her while Marcus took a seat up front with some of the executives. Keeping his options open. Networking, always networking. You look intense, Zoe observed, studying my face. Everything okay? I forced a smile. Just tired. Haven't been sleeping well since the hospital. Her expression softened. That must have been terrifying. Thank God Marcus was there. I nodded, swallowing the bitter taste in my mouth. Yes, thank God. The resort was 2 hours upstate, a sprawling property with a lake, hiking trails and luxury cabins. Team-building paradise. The kind of place corporations dump thousands into so employees can fall backward into each other's arms and pretend it builds trust. Our cabin was at the edge of the property, private, secluded, complete with a stone fireplace and king-sized bed. Marcus whistled as he dropped our bags. Not bad for a publishing house budget, he remarked, testing the mattress with his hand. We should make the most of this tonight. I turned away, unpacking my toiletries. We should get ready for the welcome dinner. Starts in an hour. His arm slid around my waist from behind, lips brushing my neck. That gives us plenty of time. I closed my eyes, remembering a time when his touch didn't make my skin crawl. Before I knew about Vanessa. Before I felt my lungs collapse while he watched. Before I died and came back with the truth burned into my soul. I need to shower, I said, slipping from his grasp. Alone, I'm still recovering. The flash of irritation on his face disappeared quickly, replaced by practiced concern. Of course, whatever you need. Under the hot spray of the shower, I went through the plan again. Every detail, every contingency. The folder of evidence safe with Dr. Patel back in the city, the recording device hidden in my makeup bag. The exact sequence of events that would unfold tonight. In my vision, I'd seen it all. The precise moment Marcus would begin to choke, the panic around the table, the desperate looks for someone who knew what to do. What I hadn't seen, because I'd been dead when it originally happened, was my response. That part I got to write myself. I dressed carefully, black dress, simple, elegant, hair loose the way Marcus liked it, a touch of red lipstick. I looked like myself, but stronger, reborn. Stunning, Marcus said when I emerged. He was adjusting his tie in the mirror, blue silk. A gift from me last Christmas. Everyone's going to be jealous. I've got the most beautiful woman at the retreat. Is that why you're with me? I asked, keeping my tone light. For how I look on your arm. He laughed. Don't be ridiculous. I'm with you because you're amazing. The lie rolled off his tongue so easily. Had it always been this obvious? Or was I only seeing it now, through death-sharpened eyes? The welcome dinner was held in the main lodge, all exposed beams and stone walls and crackling fire despite the mild evening. 50 people from Palmer Publishing mingled around high-top tables, drinking complimentary wine and making awkward small talk with colleagues they only ever emailed. Marcus worked the room like he belonged there, not me. Publishing executive Amara Chen cornered me by the appetizers, martini in hand. Your doctor is quite the charmer, she nodded toward Marcus, who was regaling the marketing team with some hospital story. And a hero to boot. Janet told me all about your asthma attack. I placed a stuffed mushroom on my small plate. Janet seems well informed. The whole office knows. It's like a romance novel, the doctor boyfriend saving his girlfriend's life. Amara sipped her drink. Though, I'm surprised you're here so soon after. Must have been traumatic. Death changes your perspective, I said, watching Marcus across the room. Makes you see what matters. She laughed uncomfortably. Well, I'm glad you're okay. We need you for the Miller manuscript launch. Of course, the manuscript. Work continued, life continued, even after you'd stopped breathing for 6 minutes. The world didn't pause for your trauma. Dinner was served at 8. Long tables arranged in a U-shape, white tablecloths, flickering candles. Marcus and I were seated at the middle table, directly across from CEO Thomas Palmer and his wife. Prime position. Marcus is doing, no doubt. The servers brought out the first course, some kind of soup with foam on top, pretentious, lukewarm. I pushed it around my bowl while Marcus charmed everyone within earshot. So, then the patient says, Doc, if I'd known it was that simple, I wouldn't have spent 3 years in therapy. Laughter erupted around him, always the centre of attention. My phone vibrated in my clutch. A text from Dr. Patel. Are you sure about this? I didn't respond. I'd never been more sure of anything. The main course arrived. Steak, thick cut, sides of roasted vegetables, and some grain I didn't recognise. Marcus cut into his meat eagerly, barely pausing his conversation with Thomas Palmer about healthcare investments. The technology is there, he was saying, gesturing with his fork. It's just a matter of getting the right funding behind it. I watched him take a large bite, chewing as he continued to talk. Any minute now, any second, and then it happened. Exactly as I'd seen it. Marcus suddenly stopped mid-sentence. His eyes widened. His hand went to his throat. Silence fell across the table as everyone realised something was wrong. Marcus stood abruptly, chair scraping back. His face began to redden, eyes bulging slightly. No sound came out when he opened his mouth. Just like me on that hospital floor, desperate for air that wouldn't come. Oh my God, is he choking? Someone gasped. Thomas Palmer jumped up. Does anyone know the Heimlich? All around the table, panicked looks, shaking heads. Marcus's face was turning darker now, a purplish hue creeping across his features. His eyes locked with mine across the table, desperate, pleading. Recognition dawned in them, the realization that I knew exactly what to do, that I could save him, just as he had supposedly saved me. I stood up slowly, napkin placed deliberately on the table. Everyone turned to me, relief washing over their faces. Sarah knows CPR, someone said. She took that course last year. Help him, Thomas Palmer urged. I walked around the table, approaching Marcus with measured steps. His eyes never left mine, wild with fear and desperation. When I reached him, I leaned in close, so close only he could hear my whisper. How does it feel, fighting for every breath, knowing your life is in someone else's hands? Horror flickered across his purpling face. Understanding. He knew that I knew. You crushed my inhaler and watched me suffocate, I continued, voice low and steady. You and Vanessa laughed while I collapsed. Did you think I wouldn't remember? He tried to grab my arm, movements growing weaker. His knees began to buckle. I stepped back, addressing the panicked crowd. I can't remember the proper technique. Someone call for help. But you're certified, Zoe cried. I shook my head, the picture of distress. It's been too long. I might make it worse. While chaos erupted around us, I kept my eyes on Marcus. His was starting to roll back, consciousness fading just as mine had done on that hospital floor. You think this is a story about revenge? I whispered, leaning close one more time. But it's something far more dangerous. It's about justice. And then I walked away. Someone shouted for the resort's medical staff. Another person tried an awkward version of the Heimlich. I stood at the edge of the room, watching, waiting. Exactly 3 minutes and 27 seconds. That's how long he needed to suffer. The same amount of time I'd suffered before the nurse found me. Just as his legs gave out, the resort's medic burst in. 2 quick abdominal thrusts later, the piece of steak shot from Marcus's mouth. He collapsed into a chair, gasping, gulping down precious air. While everyone crowded around him with water and concerned questions, I slipped outside onto the terrace. The night air was cool against my flushed skin, stars scattered across the sky like diamonds. My phone buzzed again. Dr. Patel. Is it done? Yes, I replied. He lived, barely. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally. What now? What now indeed? In my vision, I'd only seen up to this moment. The rest was unwritten. A blank page waiting for my words. Behind me, the door opened. Marcus stood there, his colour returning to normal, eyes red-rimmed and watery. But beneath the physical distress was something else. Hatred, fear. The knowledge that I had held his life in my hands and chosen, for a calculated moment, to do nothing. Just as he had done to me. You were going to let me die, he said, voice hoarse. I leaned against the stone balustrade. I considered it. But then I'd be no better than you. What are you talking about? Still playing innocent. Still lying. I pulled out my phone, opened the gallery and showed him the image. Security footage from the hospital corridor. Him, clearly stepping on my inhaler. The date and timestamp visible in the corner. Dr. Patel retrieved this before it could be overwritten, I said calmly. There's more. Witness statements, medical evidence proving my inhaler was crushed, not dropped. The blood drained from his face. Sarah, I can explain. Save it. I tucked the phone away. Here's what happens next. You're going to break up with me. Tomorrow. Tell everyone it's just too difficult after your traumatic experience tonight. Then, you're going to request a transfer to another hospital, somewhere far away. Or what? A flash of the real Marcus, cold, calculating. Or, I send this footage to the medical board, to the police, to your parents, your colleagues, everyone who thinks you're such a hero. I stepped closer. How long do you think your career would survive? Your reputation? He swallowed hard, Adam's apple bobbing. You can't prove anything. I died, Marcus. For 6 minutes, I was gone. And I came back with the truth. I smiled. I don't need to prove anything. I just need you to understand fear. Real fear. The kind that follows you everywhere. Over his shoulder, I could see people moving inside. The dinner continuing without us. Life going on. Why not just turn me in? He asked, genuine confusion in his voice. I reached up, gently straightened his tie. One last intimate gesture. Because watching you live in fear of when I might change my mind is so much more satisfying His jaw tightened. You've changed. Death will do that to a person. I moved past him toward the door. Enjoy the rest of your meal. Try not to choke. The next morning dawned grey and drizzling, matching the heavy silence between Marcus and me as we packed our bags. He hadn't slept. I'd watched him toss and turn all night, eyes flicking open whenever I moved. Afraid of me now. How the tables had turned. I'll tell everyone at breakfast, he said finally, zipping his bag with unnecessary force. That we're over. I nodded, folding my dress from the night before. Make it convincing. His laugh was hollow. Trust me, it won't be hard. We walked to the main lodge separately. Him first, shoulders rigid with tension. Me 15 minutes later, face carefully composed into an expression of oblivious normalcy. The final act was about to begin. Most of the company was already seated when I arrived. Plates loaded with buffet offerings. Conversations hushed as I entered. News of last night's drama had spread. The choking, my strange hesitation, the tension afterward that everyone had pretended not to notice. Marcus sat with Thomas Palmer and the executive team, his back to the door. Deliberate. He didn't turn when I walked in. Zoe waved me over to a table with the other editors. How's Marcus feeling? She asked as I sat down with my coffee. That was terrifying last night. Before I could answer, raised voices drew everyone's attention. Marcus was standing now, facing Thomas Palmer across the table. His voice carried across the suddenly silent room. Completely inappropriate. She froze when I needed help. She could have let me die. Thomas looked deeply uncomfortable. Marcus, perhaps this isn't the place. No, everyone should know what kind of person Sarah really is. Marcus turned, finally acknowledging my presence. His eyes were bloodshot, face haggard. We're done. I can't be with someone so vindictive. A collective gasp rippled through the room. 50 pairs of eyes swiveled between us like a tennis match. I set my coffee down slowly, the clink of porcelain against wood unnaturally loud in the silence. Vindictive? I repeated, voice steady. That's an interesting word choice. You know exactly what you did last night. He was trembling slightly, whether from anger or fear, I couldn't tell. You hesitated on purpose. I stood facing him across the room. In my peripheral vision, I could see phones being discreetly raised, tomorrow's office gossip being recorded in real time. I panicked, I said simply, just like you did at the hospital 6 weeks ago when I had my asthma attack. Confusion flickered across several faces. This wasn't the narrative they'd heard. That was completely different, Marcus sputtered. I saved your life. After watching me collapse. I took a step forward. After crushing my inhaler under your shoe. The room went deadly silent. Even the kitchen staff had stopped moving, caught in the gravity of the moment. What is she talking about? Thomas Palmer asked, looking between us. Marcus's face flushed dark red. She's delusional. The asthma attack affected her brain. Ask any doctor. Oxygen deprivation can cause hallucinations, false memories. I smiled sadly. Should we ask Dr. Patel? She was there. She saw everything. The attending physician that day, I answered, never taking my eyes off Marcus. The one who has the security footage of Marcus deliberately stepping on my inhaler after I caught him coming out of the on-call room with my best friend. Another wave of gasps. The drama was better than anything these publishing professionals edited for a living. Marcus' expression shifted from anger to calculation. Damage control mode. Sarah, you're clearly still traumatized. We should discuss this privately. Like you discussed breaking up with me privately with Vanessa. I pulled out my phone. Should I play the voicemails? The ones where you two planned exactly when to end things with me? Or maybe the texts about how inconvenient my asthma attack was for your weekend plans. His face went pale. You went through my phone? That's an invasion of privacy, More or less than watching someone suffocate and doing nothing. Thomas Palmer stood up, hands raised placatingly. Both of you, please. This is a company retreat. Whatever personal issues you're having... It's not just personal, I cut in, my voice stronger now, more certain. It's criminal, deliberate endangerment at minimum, attempted murder at worst. The words hung in the air like smoke. Someone dropped a fork. The clatter made several people jump. Marcus laughed, but it came out strangled. That's ridiculous. No one would believe that. They would with evidence. I turned to address the room at large. Last night wasn't about revenge. It was about justice, about making someone understand exactly what they'd done, what it feels like when your life is in someone else's hands, and they choose to do nothing. Zoe stood up from her table. Sarah, what exactly are you saying happened? I took a deep breath. This was the moment I'd been working toward since I gasped back to life on that hospital bed. The moment truth finally outweighed lies. 6 weeks ago, I went to surprise Marcus at the hospital with lunch. I found him coming out of an on-call room with Vanessa, my best friend. When I confronted them, I had an asthma attack. I reached for my inhaler, but Marcus deliberately stepped on it, crushing it. Then he and Vanessa watched me collapse. They waited, laughing, until a nurse found me. By then, I was clinically dead for 6 minutes. The silence was absolute. Even Marcus seemed frozen, caught between fight and flight. That's when something happened to me, I continued. Call it a near-death experience, call it a miracle. But I came back with complete clarity about what had happened, about who Marcus really is. She can't prove any of this, Marcus finally said, looking around desperately for allies, finding none. It's her word against mine, I smiled. Actually, it's your words against you. I pressed play on my phone. Marcus's voice filled the room, tinny but unmistakable. Was an accident, Vanessa. I didn't mean to step on it that hard. We just needed time to figure out what to tell her. How was I supposed to know she'd actually stop breathing? A female voice, Vanessa's, responded. The doctors are asking questions. What if she remembers what happened? She won't. The oxygen deprivation will mess with her memory. Besides, everyone already thinks I saved her. Just stick to the story. I stopped the recording. There's more, but I think you get the idea. Marcus looked like he might be sick. Where did you get that? Your pocket. Last night at dinner, while everyone was focused on your recovery. I slipped my phone back into my bag. Turns out, nearly dying makes you very good at contingency planning. Thomas Palmer cleared his throat. Marcus, I think you should leave. Now. 2 security personnel had materialised by the door. Not resort staff. Palmer Publishing's own security team. Marcus looked between them, then back at me. This isn't over, he said, voice barely above a whisper. Actually, it is. I nodded toward the door. There are 2 police officers waiting in the lobby. Dr. Patel called them this morning with her statement and the security footage. They have some questions for you about medical negligence and reckless endangerment. As if on cue, 2 uniformed officers appeared in the doorway. The female officer stepped forward. Dr. Marcus Weber? The fight went out of him all at once. His shoulders slumped as the officers approached. Before they led him away, he looked back at me one last time. I never meant for you to die, he said quietly. I know. I met his gaze steadily. But you didn't particularly care if I did either. And that's the difference between us. I made sure you survived last night. Eventually. After the officers led him away, the room erupted in chaos. I slipped out quietly, needing air, needing space. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving everything washed clean. I breathed deeply, feeling my lungs expand fully. No constriction, no panic. Just air filling spaces that had once been starved of it. My phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Patel. It's done. They're taking his statement now. As I walked back to my cabin, my phone rang. Sarah, it's Vanessa. Her voice sent a chill through me. My former best friend. The other half of the betrayal. I heard what happened, she said, voice trembling. Sarah, you have to believe me. I never wanted you to get hurt. The inhaler thing was all him. But you stood there, I said quietly. You watched me collapse and did nothing until it was almost too late. I panicked. I didn't know what to do. And afterward, when you kept seeing him, when you planned to break up with me, was that panic too? Silence on the line. Then, softly, I'm sorry. 2 small words. Inadequate, empty. Save it for your statement, I said. The police will want to know exactly what you saw that day. I ended the call and sat on the edge of the bed, suddenly exhausted. 6 weeks of planning, of pretending, of waiting, all for this moment of truth, of justice. 3 months later, I stood outside the courthouse, autumn leaves swirling around my feet. The hearing had been brief, Marcus accepting a plea deal for criminal negligence and reckless endangerment. His medical license suspended. Community service, probation. It wasn't everything, but it was something. Justice of a sort. Dr. Patel waited by her car across the street, a silent guardian through this whole process. She'd risked her career to bring forward the evidence, to stand with me, to believe me. Ready? She asked as I approached. I nodded. Ready. As we drove away, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I think about it every day, about what I did to you, what you did to me, how it felt to choke, to die a little. I understand now. Marcus, breaking his no-contact order. Typical. I deleted the message without responding. He'd had his epiphany too late. You know, Dr. Patel said, glancing at me as she drove, most people who have near-death experiences report feeling more compassionate afterward, more connected to others. You're unusual. I watched the courthouse shrink in the side mirror. I am compassionate. I could have let him die that night. I chose not to. That's a pretty low bar for compassion, she observed dryly. I smiled. Maybe, but it's higher than the one he set. We drove in silence for a while, autumn light filtering through trees still clinging to their leaves. Finally, she asked what I'd been asking myself for months. Was it worth it? All of this? I thought about Marcus's face as they led him away, about Vanessa's tearful testimony, about the 6 minutes my heart had stopped beating, and whatever force had sent me back with a second chance. It wasn't about revenge, I said finally. It was about balance, about making things right. And are they? Right. I took a deep breath, feeling my lungs expand fully, freely. The phantom tightness that had lingered since my death finally dissolving. Getting there, I said, looking forward through the wind's shield instead of back at the mirror. I died once. I'm not wasting my second life looking backward. Dr. Patel nodded, understanding in her eyes. Where to, then? I smiled, genuine for the first time in months. Anywhere, everywhere. I've got time now. As we drove toward the horizon, I felt the last chains of my old life fall away. Death had changed me, yes. But life, this second, unexpected life, was changing me too. Every free breath a reminder, every heartbeat a second chance. They say the best revenge is living well, but I discovered something better than revenge. Rebirth.